PSA. And PSA, as I understand it, penal substitutionary atonement. The sin of Adam, the sin of man in general, incurs an almost infinite wrath of the Father, which Jesus has to pay for, correct?
Typically, yeah, that would be agreed with. Classical Protestants would agree with that, yes.
So, my question, though, is, wouldn't Adam's sin and even my sin also be in the same affront to the Son as it is to the Father?
Yes.
So who pays off the Son?
Well, this is a point actually that we do make against penal substitutionary atonement, in that it is dyadic, because you have this payment between two persons that neglects the third person, and by extension it would neglect the second person as well. So yes, this is a variation on, and I'm not trying to be rude or steal your thunder, but it's a variation on the argument that we've made many times. So there's nothing in the Godhead that occurs that's just between two people. Or two persons, right? So anything that happens has to be triadic. So you can't have, the Father damning the Son. Okay, what about the Holy Spirit? Is he not involved in this? Well, it makes no sense. So, but I think you're right to go that route too. It's another variation. But also, I think Protestants are just typically thinking of Jesus as a quasi-Nestorian, just a man, right? So I know they confess his divinity. But if you think about it, PSA, it either requires a split of the Trinity or a dual subject Christology, which is Nestorian.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You're on the right track, dog.
Say that there has to be a necessary split in the Trinity if Jesus was supposed to have to get upon himself the wrath of God. How is that not, how a Protestant is able to say the contrary to that matter? I was watching your video where you were explaining James White book on that matter as well. Mm-hmm. How is it that they cannot see that? And is it that obvious, or is just
Protestants don't have very good Trinitarian theology, so they, in the Reformation, they defaulted to the Latin Augustinian model of the Trinity. They don't have the monarchical Trinitarian model that we have, and they don't, by extension, then have the right toolkit for really distinct persons. And so person kind of gets collapsed into essence or nature in the Protestant view, just like it does in the traditional Latin Roman Catholic position via Augustine and so on, Aquinas. So if you don't have that right toolkit, that's why you see the Thomists, they don't think that the theophanies are possible. They don't think that the angel of the Lord is the second person of Godhead, even though it's obvious in the New Testament that he is, because Jesus identifies himself as that. And he's even worshipped and called Yahweh and so forth throughout the Old Testament. They just can't fathom this because they have a metaphysical system that prevents them from believing that. And it's the same with Protestants, except it's not so much a metaphysical system as it is the baggage of what they think these terms and these systems mean that prevent them from seeing that it makes no sense from a Trinitarian perspective to say that the Father damns the Son. It's just stupid.
Yeah, I was trying to wrap my head on that explanation, and then I went around and looked at Gavin Ortlund video on that, and he was trying to reconcile recapitulation with SPA. So
you mean PSA?
He was saying PSA. I'm sorry, and he was saying that it was possible. That it was possible to do so.
Well, okay, so I mean that's creativity on his part, but like I think Protestants don't understand that a lot of these doctrines, they're not standalone doctrines, right? Like The monarchical Trinitarianism is logically and theologically connected to energetic manifestation and the essence energy distinction. It doesn't make sense because you can find Protestant theologians who will say, "Oh, actually, I believe it." I think one of them, Robert Morey, I think he says he believes in the essence energy distinction. Yeah, I mean, you can theoretically say you believe that, but it's not a consistent position given the fact that those doctrines don't stand alone, right? They go along with other necessary doctrines like a certain view of sacramentology, the real presence, etc. So it's just really an inconsistent position to pick and choose and say, oh, I'm going to find a way to smash Maximus the Confessor's cosmic theology into John Calvin. Not going to happen because in John Calvin's theology, Christ does not assume universal human nature.
Yeah, I see. Well, appreciate your answers. Thank you for everything, okay? Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, those are great questions. Appreciate you. Roll stakes, $20. Did Roman Catholics have a schools of theology frame of thinking? Yes, absolutely. They think that the essence energy distinction in Palimism is a school of thought, correct. They do not understand it as essentially the experience of all the saints. And that's why you have essentially everything all over the place with them. So you can have Roman Catholic spirituality being Margaret Mary Alacoque cutting yourself with a knife and bleeding out, and that's a divine experience. And you can be a crusader going into battle, that's a divine experience. You could be a monk warrior, which suddenly exists in the 11th century in violation of the ancient canons. Well, the Pope says no, we can have monk warriors now. So in the Roman Catholic system, it can just be anything. You see, it's not just schools, it's also warrior monks, just crazy shit, just made up, right? But you're correct that regarding their perspective, they think it's a school. They don't understand that, no, when the Sixth Ecumenical Council teaches the essence energy distinction in Christology, it's not a school of thought. For them, Thomism is another school, and they can believe in any of the ones that they want, more or less. I mean, it's difficult if you want to be a Roman Catholic and contend with Aeternae Patris, which Leo XIII says Thomism is the official philosophy of Rome. And that's why the more traditional you get, the more hardcore Thomists they are, because they know they've read Aeternae Patris. And they realize that it's just a rough road when you're trying to sell Roman Catholics on, quote, Eastern theology. That doesn't work. And so it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's all a bunch of competing positions. And that alone should tell you, why would we have infinite various ways of people experiencing God and being saved? It would be the same experience of the uncreated light, whether it's Moses or whether it's Basil or whether it's Paul or whether it's recent saints in the Orthodox Church. That alone should tell you that Orthodoxy is the true church, and not cutting yourself with knives and talking to flying hosts and Jesus is your boyfriend and all this crazy Faustina Kowalska stuff. That alone should tell you that it's not right. Let's talk God. Can you break down the Synod of Jerusalem and Decree 3, that it's not semi-Pelagian? So we don't have semi-Pelagianism in the Orthodox Church. The West thinks that if you're not believing in operative grace or, what Augustine talks about, they think it's semi-Pelagian. The Orthodox Church has always taught a synergy because it's a fundamental feature of human nature to have human will and energy. And to lose that energy or to have it supplanted would violate the teaching of the Sixth Council on human nature fundamentally having at all times its own will and energy. So that means you can't have a supplanting and a monergism in conversion, because that would be to override our human nature and energy. And you realize then that in Christology, that would mean that the monothelites and the monoenergists were correct.